Hi everybody, my name is Gerardo and I am the founder of Beyond Words Games. Today I will explain you how to play one of my games, The Strange Forgeries of Mr. S.C.Rheber. This is a game of logic about forging art using the scientific method and is designed for 3 to 7 players, lasting around 45 minutes. This video will deal with the rules of base games that are brought in pink in the official rulebook, but extensive parts of this video are not found in the rulebook, as they are tips and tricks to moderate a successful game. I will mark those sections right here, with a special icon on the right of the screen. So feel free to pause the video if you need it. And now it's time to get comfortable and begin with an introduction. This video is divided into 4 sections. An overview of the game, that will follow the how to play, that will teach you how to play the game with a lot of practical example. Some useful tool to explain the game for the first time, and finally a brief mention to the other games of this line, the 2 official expansions, and more. Let's go. In each game of the Strange Forgeries, there is a player that is known to be the Gallerist, and he secretly decides what is required of any drawing to be considered original, failing this requirement and then the drawing is considered a fake. For example, if it were the presence of a triangle that determined the authenticity of a drawing, then this sketch would be original and this other one would be a fake. Because the peculiar thing about the Strange Forgery is that this rule can be whatever comes in your head, the limit is only your imagination, the size of the paper and the marker that you will use to paint with it. And here is where it gets interesting. Only one drawing is shown at the beginning of the game and presented as original. And from this humble starting point, all other players, that are called collectors, will try to figure out the rule with the equivalent, in game terms, of the scientific method. In fact, the art collectors will only have one type of move at their disposal throughout the course of the game. Take a colored paper corresponding to the color of their characters, they draw something on it. And then the gallerist will secretly tell them whether it's an original by the means of a small circle written with a pencil on the back, or a fake, and in this case they would write an X. So each move is an experiment that was either successful or not. The game ends after a certain number of experiments, and the player who can correctly recognize the most originals and fakes among their opponent's experiments is the winner. Each collector chooses a color and brings the corresponding stack of paper and black marker in front of him. That will be all they need for the first part of the game. The gallerist takes the screen, a black felt tip pen, a pencil and a stack of white paper. Collector books and museum folders will only be needed at the end, keep them sidely. Forger board and tokens can be left in the box since they're not required for base game. Boxes and deck of cards are not needed as well, as they are useful for inventing new riddles or store old ones. This part of the video contains some spoilers for players that will be collectors. So you want to make sure that you will play as a gallerist if you're seeing this video, and in this way we will not spoil the surprise. Anyway, don't worry, because this phase can be prepared before the start of the game, so take your time. This is the phase where the gallerist decides the secret rules. While you are free to invent one on your own, you will find several ready-made secret rules in the Gallerist Almanac, which is a booklet that you will find inside your copy of the Strange Forgeries. From page 10 starts the chapter A Collection of Riddles. Take the first riddle titled A Figure's Color and copy behind the screen what is written in the grey rectangle. Do the same with images. The gallery screens allow you to note down up to 6 original sketches on the left-hand grid and up to 6 fake sketches on the right-hand grid. This is optional but helpful to explain something that would be too wordy otherwise. This is the artistic manifesto and is the solution to this game riddle. Then you need to create a drawing and show it to all players. You have to tell them that this is an original. To do so, you can consult this section and choose and copy one of the 3 original and difficult drawings I provided. This is the first masterpiece. And finally, you have to decide for the difficulty of the game by comparing the appropriate grid. It indicates the value of two parameters for different player counts: forger level and museum size. I've already recommended a difficulty setting for this riddle, which is medium, and we will see later in the guessing phase how exactly those setting works. But here is a preview. For 5 players, which means 4 collectors and 1 gallerist, and difficulty is medium, the museum size is set to 7. And this means that each player, at the end of the game, will challenge the others with 7 of their most difficult drawings that they have done. In a 5-player game, each collector has 4 opponents, because the gallerist is included, which makes up for 28 drawings that each player have to guess. The forger level is set to 4, and this is the maximum amount of mistakes you can do while attempting to guess the authenticity of those 28 drawings. In other words, make more than 1 mistake in every 7 drawings and you will not have guessed the rule. This is the meaning of medium difficulty. Now it's time to bookmark the page of a figure color. We will need it again and proceed in the next stage of the game, because it's time to paint. This phase is the beating heart of the game. The collectors will submit their experiments to the gallerist, and the gallerist will try to balance the game with clues. This phase is divided into 6 rounds, and in each round the gallerist decide how many experiments can be administered by themselves and the other players. Let's simulate one round. The gallerist had decided that this round is consisting of 3 drawings, and he had already revealed the following first masterpiece to everyone. In their first attempt, the red player decided to test whether the rule might have something to do with triangles, and to confirm this, he tries to draw exactly what he sees in the first masterpiece, but modifying the minimum, so that it is no longer a triangle. In his second experiment, the red player checks whether it is a matter of angles rather than triangles, and so makes minimal changes to the gallerist's initial design. Finally, he wants to remove the doubt that the large central triangle isn't but a distraction and focus on the crosses. You see, this small modification allows the red player to isolate and better study the variables of their experiments and isolate them from the noise. Obviously, he hopes that one of the 3 drawings will turn out to be a fake, so that he can confirm that these minor modifications are significant to change the authenticity of the first masterpiece from original, which it is, to fake. After each set of experiments is drawn, players are ready to hand them over to the gallerist, who secretly mark their back with the solution, a circle for original and an X for fakes. Coming back to our simulation, the red player learns that only the drawing whose corners had been removed is fake. He is getting closer to a solution. This mechanism is repeated 6 times in 6 different rounds, each round with a number of experiments chosen by the gallerist from time to time. Be mindful that during this round the gallerist will also draw their white papers in the required number and mark them with a secret solution in pencil. However, they will have the opportunity to take any number of their drawings, even from previous rounds, and reveal the solution to all players. The gallerist will have a single chance to do so at every round's end. And depending on the difficulty of the rule that they have chosen, this step will be crucial to balance the game and help the players. So let's go over some tips. So let's return to the Gallerist Almanac where we left it. In the bottom part there are some drawings, and you are free to copy them during the exhibition rounds to reveal the solution and help the players. The drawings, you may have noticed, they are grouped by difficulty, with the simplest on the right and the most difficult one on the left. And of course, the simpler is the drawing, the greater is the help. You will also notice that the drawings appear in almost identical pairs of original and fake. Copying them in those pairs during the same round is especially helpful because it's a great way to tell players to focus on key aspect. In this case, the key aspect is that the 2 overlapping black triangles do not count as 2 triangles distinct, but as a single black figures. So when it is time to help the player and when it's time to confuse them. If you watch players carefully, at some point one of them must produce something that comes close to the drawing that in the Gallerist almanac have been grouped among the easy, the simpler one. If not, it means that your players are off track. You need to produce slightly more obvious clue and see what happens in the next round. And then, hopefully, you will receive simple drawings. By behaving in the manner that I just stated, you will have one of the player that will be very confident of having figured out the secret rule, possibly around the third round. And in this moment, it is important to point out to all players that the objective of the game is not simply to find the secret rule, but also to mislead your opponents. And the best way to do this is to find interesting exception. Failing to do so will likely cause a draw. And in the guessing phase, we will talk about that. For the sake of a simulation, imagine that the secret rules requires that the triangles exist in the drawing. But what happens if I superimpose the two figures? Are they still two triangles, or are they now a multitude of adjacent polygons? As a game master, try to reward players if they get clever with those kind of exceptions. With round 6, the exhibition phase ends, and it's time to move on to the guessing phase. At this stage, collectors have learned a lot about how the secret rule created by the Gallerist works. But they probably do not understand all aspects of it. And this is not at all a problem. They will not be tested in their ability to explain the rule, but rather in how accurately they can apply it in real case scenario. So let's see how explaining the guessing phase. First of all, each player, collector or gallerist takes a museum folder. Then each collector takes the booklet matching their color. Based on how the museum size was set during Manifesto phase, each player, gallerist included, chooses up that many of their most difficult drawings, discard the others, and slot all of them in a folder. For medium difficulty and 5 players, this number is 7. In making this choice, the player will look among their own designs for those that they suspect that their opponents will find most difficult to guess correctly. For example, the red player will not include those illustrations in their choice, as there are a lot of similar examples among the designs of the pink player. On the other hand, imagine that the red player suspects that the rule is something like must contain at least one triangle, and realize that the gallerist counts triangles in a very particular way when they intersect. In this example, the gallerist counts 3 polygons, 2 triangles, and 7 polygons respectively in those figures. So the red player is sure that this is a very special case that no one has paid attention to, and include these drawings in his own museum. Some tips. If you are the gallerist, I would suggest you to slot your drawing first before the other do so, and choose a convenient configuration like this way. You try to show it to everyone and ask them to do the same. Basically, this ensures that all players have the same setup in their museum, and later on it will facilitate the steps of guessing. When all players are ready and all the drawings are slotted in their museum, the challenge begins. Place the player museum in front of each of them so that the orientation is the same for everyone. When they open their collector booklet, they will hold the transparent page on the left, above the page titled Guesses. It will be on this grid that they will write their answer. Each player gets up from their chair and have to make a complete turn around the table trying to guess every drawing of every opposing museum they cross. They will write X if they think is a fake and a circle if they think is an original. When all players have given all the answers and have returned to their position, it is time to reveal the solution and mark the mistakes. You will notice that when you look at a drawing in a column on the left and want to check its solution, by flipping it, this will be moved on the right. And it will happen also vice versa. So follow me for a moment while I explain you a trick. The gallerist will go around the table and turn the museum folder of all players along the side like a page. Especially if you find yourself playing with completely filled museum folders, try not to rotate them or turn them along the short side, as it may be difficult to see what the original position was. And once the solution had been put on display, Each player will turn the transparent page of their collector booklet where they have written their answer from left to right over the page with solution written on it. Of course, if a player has accidentally written on the opposite side of the acetate sheet, turn it over the left page instead. There will be no consequences. In this way, solution and answer will be correctly aligned, and player can mark their mistake by blackening the box containing an incorrect answer. To speed up this phase, I suggest a procedure we normally use in our games. The Gallerist takes a museum folder, announces its color, and starts reading the solution from left to right and from top to bottom. The collectors, hearing the announced solution, will blacken the box every time they hear a solution that differs from their answer. After each collector had submitted the mistakes that they have made while guessing the drawings of the other players, including the Gallerist, it's time to calculate the score. Now it's time for scoring. We return to the Gallerist almanac where we left the bookmark. Our riddle tells us that the forger level for 5 players is 4 in medium difficulty. This means that the player who has made 4 or less mistakes is the winner, because 4 is the forger level in medium difficulty for 5 players. When more than one player has won the game, then the winner is the one who has made the fewest mistakes. If there is still a tie, the players share victory. No one was better in fooling the others. And that's it. This concludes the rule for the Strange Forgeries and explain you how you determine a winner. If you are afraid of forgetting any rules, you don't have to go back to this video. In the fuchsia border page dedicated to base game, I have prepared a section called Explaining the Rules. Read aloud the text in the grey boxes during the game and then follow up the other instruction. It will be a great help to moderate the game in a sort of autopilot mode. Do not underestimate this help. So now, what about the drawings that you have made? So, you don't have to throw all your drawing away. With other titles of my own creation, such as the Bestiary or the League of the Extraordinary Collectors, you can use those drawings as the actual component of those games. One such game in particular is already included in the box of the Strange Forgeries. It's called The Auction of the Greater Fool and is found at the end of the Gallerist Almanac, as well as the instruction to store your drawing to repurpose them to this kind of games. And now it's time to talk about the expansion. The base game is a kind of tutorial for you who wants to be a game master in the Strange Forgeries. You won't win or lose, but that doesn't mean that the quality of your play cannot be assessed. In fact, base game introduces you with a very important concept, that of guessing the rule. As I've already said, this is not about a player's ability to verbalize the rule, but to apply it to guess the opponent's drawing while keeping mistakes below a certain threshold, which is called forger level. A good game master, the Strange Forgeries try to create puzzles that are accessible to players, but not so easy that will bore them. What you want to achieve is that some of them is able to guess the rule, while others won't. This way the game will end with a sense of tension for some of them, and the victory will not feel like a given for the others. If after a few games you develop the confidence to be able to do this consistently, I recommend you to try the advanced modes, the Archritic expansion and the Inspector expansion, which are bordered respectively in blue and yellow in the rulebook. They are a great way to elevate your role as a game master. And similarly to base game, in the Gallerist Almanac I propose 3 ready-made puzzles for the Archritic expansion in blue and 3 for the Inspector expansion in yellow, so you can apply the principle that I explain over this video also to this expansion. These 2 expansions are designed to train yours and your friends' creative problem-solving skills by gradually decreasing the luck element of base game. They add the Gallerist in the scoring system based on how well they had balanced the game, a couple of new components like scoreboard, tokens, and a new page of the collector booklet. And finally, but only in the inspector expansion, I added a mechanism to ensure that the gallerist will evaluate the player drawings as objectively as possible, which is recommended only to veteran riddle makers and riddle solvers. Finally, I remind you that if you don't have a box of the Strange Forgeries, but nevertheless you want to try out the game, I have released a small print and play demo that can be printed and set it up in less than a minute. You will find rules and the file to download from my dedicated video that you will find in the description. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for following me and have fun with the Strange Forgeries.